Hi, this is the lecture, the recorded lectures for Chapter 1, Introduction to Biology, for Bio 111. There we go. All right. The first thing that we're going to talk about in this chapter are the properties that all living things possess. So all living organisms share these listed properties of life. We're going to talk about them and go into more detail, but I'll briefly go over each one. All living things are organized, or they exhibit some sort of order. We're going to learn the levels of organization, and you're going to be responsible for knowing the order, starting with the smallest level of organization, which is an atom. An atom is the smallest unit of matter, and we're all composed of atoms arranged into molecules. And then all living things are composed of at least one cell, but multicellular organisms like humans and dogs and cats are composed of trillions of cells. So that's what order is going to deal with. Then we have sensitivity or response to the environment. The examples that are in this slideshow are responses to light and to chemicals, but we respond to heat. Last night I spilled my husband's plate of food on my hand, and I had just taken it out of the microwave, so my response was I immediately removed my hand from the food and I put it under the cold water, and then I put some aloe vera on it, and thank goodness I don't have any pain today. But living things respond to various conditions in the environment. Some people have like I'm overly responsive or overly sensitive to bright light, especially fluorescent lights. My response is going to be to squint my eyes or try to dim the lights, or maybe sunglasses or something like that. Reproduction, of course, is when organisms produce offspring. If the offspring is identical to the parent, we call that asexual reproduction. If a sperm and an egg are involved, we call it sexual reproduction. Reproduction is related to, but is not the same thing as growth and development. Growth is either increasing the number of cells in the organism, or the cells themselves are getting bigger. Development are the different stages that organisms go through from, like for example, a human is in the womb. The first cell that becomes the adult human is called a zygote. That develops into an embryo and then a fetus, and then the fetus is born. It's called an infant, and so on. Regulation is how we do that by using our central nervous system and using our endocrine system. We regulate different conditions and different situations going on in our bodies. Living things are able to do this. All living things are able to do this at some level. Homeostasis is related to regulation. It is the maintenance of constant conditions within our cells. And so we'll talk about examples. And then energy processing, probably the most common two types of chemical reactions that process energy are the cellular respiration reaction that goes on in all cells that breaks down glucose and produces energy, and photosynthesis, which takes sunlight energy and converts it into food. So energy processing is our last characteristic. We're starting with the property called order. Organisms are highly organized. What we see here is a frog. I'm pretty sure it's a frog, not a toad, but honestly, I can't remember. I do know that if you look in your study plan, it tells you underneath the picture but I don't have anything but except for the picture in front of me. But anyway, this frog, whether you think it's beautiful or ugly or whatever you think of it, this frog is organized, starting with that it's composed of atoms, of different elements. Those atoms are arranged into molecules. Then those molecules are arranged into macromolecules like carbohydrates and proteins and nucleic acids such as DNA. The molecules are arranged into cell parts called organelles. The cells formed from the organelles are arranged into tissues, and the tissues are arranged into organs. And here, starting here is just an example of a very large molecule, a macromolecule. DNA, the Na stands for nucleic acid, and this is a molecule of DNA. It takes the shape of a twisted ladder or double helix. It's made of many different atoms of the elements carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus. Those are some of the different atoms that are found that combine to form molecules, to form this large macromolecule. And then here we have an illustration starting with organelles. So before the organelles, it would be atoms, molecules, macromolecules, then organelles. And then the organelles are the individual, organelle sounds like little organ. The nucleus, for example, is an organelle within certain cells, like plant cells and animal cells. They're just very, very small, so we call them organelles. They perform different roles in the cell. Human blood cells are an example of cells. We have blood cells and skin cells and muscle cells and nerve cells. Tissues are collections of cells. This is showing human skin cells. The ones that you see here at the very top and down here into this dark pink layer are squamous epithelial cells, and this tissue is called epithelial tissue. As you go down lower, the tissue here in the lighter pink region is called connective tissue. Human beings and other organisms are made of organs. The tissues are grouped together into organs, and then organs perform a certain function, like the heart is an organ, the liver is an organ, and then organ systems are groups of organs that work together. So, for example, the human digestive system is listed here as an example of an organ system, and it is composed of the esophagus, the stomach, the intestines, the rectum, as well as the accessory organs of the digestive system, like the liver and the pancreas, which also play roles in digestion. Now, after that, we have the organism. So an organism can be multicellular. In that case, it would be composed of many cells and possibly tissues, organs, and organ systems. But if we have groups of organisms of the same species, we call those populations. And then different populations of organisms living together are called communities. So, for example, in this forest, all the pine trees make up a population of pine trees, if they're all the same species of pine trees. So we'll say the loblolly pine is the one really common in North Carolina. So we'll say they're the species or the population of loblolly pine trees in this forest. And then all the plant and animal species and bacteria and mushrooms or fungus, all the living things in this forest are the community. The ecosystem adds the habitat to the community. So it includes, this is a coastal ecosystem. It's actually a marsh, which is more like off of the coast, but it's part of the coastal ecosystem. And this coastal ecosystem includes the living things, and it also includes the water and the soil and, all the different components that make up the habitat. So an ecosystem is the non-living and living things in a particular area. We have coastal ecosystems. We have a pond can be an ecosystem. A forest can be an ecosystem. We have different ones. And then there is the biosphere, which is everywhere on the earth that living things can exist. So all the ecosystems on the earth would be the biosphere. So if we were to make a list of the organization of life, I'm going to see if I can write. But if I can't, I'll just have to say it. Pen. Yes, let me write. Okay, great. So I'm going to make a darker color. Okay, I'm sorry. Before I was trying to record, it wouldn't let me actually draw, and this is not going to be pretty. But if we were to make a list from the simplest or smallest level of organization, we'd start with the atom. Sorry. That's atom. And then atoms are grouped together. Into molecules. Hopefully I'll get better at this. And then large molecules, small molecules can form large molecules, but we'll just leave molecule as the next level of organization. Groups of molecules combine to form the small little structures that perform various functions within a cell, and we call these structures organelles. And then the smallest, I don't know why it keeps doing that. I got all the way through molecule without that line. But the smallest unit of living things that contains all the characteristics of a living thing is called a cell. So the next level of organization would be the cell. Now sometimes we stop here because if you think about it, bacteria are unicellular. So we would stop at the cell for bacteria. But for multicellular organisms, groups of cells are tissues. Groups of tissues that work together to perform a common function are called organs. And then groups of organs that work together to perform a common function, are called organ systems. We have like the digestive system, oh, I just want to give up. Okay, so we have like the digestive system, the circulatory system, the nervous system. We have actually 11 organ systems in the human body. And then the organ systems combine to form the entire organism. And I'm going to stop here until I get a little better at this. I'll just have to practice. I used to have a laptop that was a touch screen and it had a stylus. Now I have a laptop where I'm using a mouse. This is ridiculous because I'm just not good at it. But anyway, I apologize for that, but it says, just to make sure you know, it says atom, molecule, organelle, cell, tissues, organs, organ systems, and organism. And then if you come over here, you can keep going with the level of complexity. You would go from the organism to populations, communities, ecosystems, and then to the biosphere. So those are the levels of organization in order, from simplest to most complex.